Hi everyone and welcome back to Barker-Stargazer's YouTube channel. This week I'm afraid we're not going to be working on anything that's in front of me here because they're all still too far away from being done. But number 2 is actually a pattern I'm working on writing at the moment. That's the latest AI to reality. And then I have like little pieces like these that I've got some idea for. So I'm going to do another pattern review today because my girl's friend is having a birthday come up and she has seen this sausage dog hot dog. It's a dog which is also a hot dog. Anyway, I actually have a pattern to make this. Ding! And it's a completely free pattern. I have every confidence that this is actually going to work. But just to add a little bit of trepidation for me is I am going to use this yarn. Now this is one of those velvet fluffy yarns and they are not my favourite yarns to use, I have to admit. It's also quite thin, so I'm going to have to double it up. I don't know if that's going to make it even harder for me to make this. The pattern actually calls for it to be made in double knit and using a 4mm hook. It does not give dimensions of the finished product, nor does it give weight of yarn that you need to do going into it. All it specifies is that you need a colour for your hot dog, sausage dog, a colour for your bun, then a colour for your ketchup, and a colour for your mustard. So, I have decided from this yarn that this dark brown will be my sausage dog colour. This cream will be the bun. And then I've got these for the sauces. So like I said, I am actually going to double my yarn up. But I think that's only going to take me to a 4.5mm hook because this yarn asks for a 3.25mm hook to work in if you're just working a single strand. I'm doubling it, but I'm not even sure it's actually going to work with a 4.5. You know what, actually I'll try it now. Have a look.
A few stitches later.
Yeah, I didn't drop any of the strands there as I went through. Okay, right, so I'm going to be using this fluffy yarn. Yeah, when I'm done with this, I'll be able to give you dimensions for using a 4.5 hook, and I guess a yarn weight that would be probably closer to Aran weight than double knit when I'm done. Yep, let's dive into this pattern. Right, let's get to our pattern. Our pattern can be found as always on my Good Free Pattern pin board over on Pinterest. Just search Barker-Stargazer, look for the green star. So this is the pattern we're using, free crochet pattern Hot Dog by stringydingding.com. Now I am going to make some changes to this pattern as I go through, just make it my own. We're starting here with the head. It's a very standard head shape. This is an easy pattern after all. An easy level pattern, I mean. So we start at the snout, the nose, work our way along the front of the head of the dog, then increase along the top to get our dome. It's then simply stuffed and closed at the back. Now, looking at the finished head, I have to say I think there needs to be some adjustment on the toy eyes. The pattern actually doesn't state where to put them, so I've just sort of guessed, but I think I need to use some yarn just to pull in the head a little bit and give a little bit more shape, but I'm going to leave that till a lot later on, till at least after I have the ears done anyway. And speaking of ears, here is the finished one according to the pattern. But I'm going to redo them because I want to insert some pink yarn into the middle. So I'm going to use this one that's complete as my base, just so I can see how everything is going to fit together. Now I could have just done a separate pink piece and then overlaid it and stitched it in, but I like to make things harder for myself and incorporate loads of colour changes. To admit, when it came to unpicking the completed ear that I'd already made, I only found this much shedding from this yarn, and it also frogged really easily, so that's definitely a plus in this yarn. Okay, so I'm starting to make my own changes now, so I'm going to skip ahead to the bun. Now I've only got 2 balls of this cream yarn, so for the inside part of the bun that will not be visible in the finished piece, I'm actually going to change to a standard acrylic yarn in almost the exact same shade and incorporate that in the middle. I have to admit, actually, it gave quite a nice effect when it was done, and it made me think about ideas for like crocheting sushi rolls or rice balls, but you know, that's a whole other project that we can just put in the ideas jar. Okay, now on to the, well, I guess the sausage of the dog. So I've only got a small amount of the brown yarn left, so I roughly divided it up, and I am starting with this velvet yarn at the front of the sausage dog. When this runs out, I'm going to switch to a standard acrylic in brown and do the full length of the bread bun in that, and then switch back to my velvet yarn for the tail end of the dog. Now there is a tail piece on the pattern, but it's more for like a standard end of a traditional sausage, and I just don't want to do that, so I decided to just do some freehand crochet just to create more of a dog tail. As I say, I just completely freehand crocheted it, so I really couldn't tell you what stitches I used without taking it all apart. Before moving on to the condiments for the top of the hot dog, I decided to assemble as much as I could. I actually don't think I showed making these feet on camera, but anyway, they're just little tubes, and I chose to keep them flat on my finished piece, laying front and back as if the dog has been laid completely into the hot dog bun. I decided to use my acrylic yarn to attach it all together, just so I didn't have to worry about any slippage from this velvet yarn. Now, as my bun isn't as big as the pattern called for, I'm going to adapt with the ketchup. Instead of just doing a single chain line for the ketchup, just like the pattern says, I am going to work a chain and work back and forth along this chain until this red yarn runs out. That way I can cover as much of the top of the dog as possible. And here I am actually shaping the eyes, nothing complicated there, just drawing a thread through and pulling the eyes in just that little bit. I don't think it made that much of a difference in the end, but it made me happier with the piece. Putting the ears on and just making sure none of the pink is showing on the outside. Again, no real instructions on the pattern about where to place them, so I just use my best judgment. This also is me just being a little bit creative, putting eyebrows and a little smile on. The nose is meant to be a separate crocheted piece, but I just decided to embroider on instead of doing that. And there's my chunky red sauce going on. And I decided to do 2 lines of mustard just to fill it all out. And here he is, all ready to eat, all on a plate. So I've actually forgotten to measure how long he is, but this is a standard dinner plate, so that should give you some indication. It's definitely come out bigger than I think the pattern. It's definitely come out bigger than the pictures on the pattern. As for this yarn, it did feel a little staticky to work with, but all in all I'm quite impressed with the quality and how easy it was to work with. It's just with only having it in such tiny balls, it's hard to do a larger scale project with it. I mean, with me using standard acrylic yarn as well, I was able to get away with 5 balls of the brown, 2 of the cream, 1 of the red and 1 of the yellow. Now each of those was only 15 grams of yarn per ball. But it has got me thinking, I wonder, instead of using such chunky velvet yarn in future, maybe if I try and find a brand which is thinner and I can use a smaller needle with, I might have better results working with it and find it easier to work with. Alright YouTube, hopefully next week AI to reality for the dragon will be done. I will see you then. Bye bye.